All right, before the break, we were looking at what do we do when the app is finished? Because we don't give end user source code. Got through most of the process. We're ready to make an installer, but it had to download we had to download and install the software to make an installer. So seemed like a good time to take a break. I did forget to mention one of the things on my notes earlier, and actually probably should have been mentioned last week. There's a final exam. Everybody see that? Notice that yet? There's a final exam. It's just like the midterm, just a debugging thing. So make sure you get that knocked out soon. Probably sooner rather than later, because the debugging ones go pretty quickly, right? Very, very similar to the midterm, just a debugging product, a debugging exam. Sort of the things that you would see in an entry level position. There's at least one intern in this class that can speak to that. You get in there and the senior developers are coding along, and doing stuff, and they hit a bug, and they're like, I've got too much stuff to do with it to deal with the bug, so they give the bug to the entry level people in the interns, right, Jamie? So the entry level is a lot of debugging. So things like that are great practice for what we do in what we see in the industry. You just entry level positions and internships. Yes. Thanks. The things to do. So stuff to do, get a lot of you'll show up and they'll for entry level positions, you'll show up and there'll be things like fix this bug, clean up this formatting, little things like that while the senior developer moves on to the next complicated algorithm. You all will all see that one day before long. So that's why I like those debugging midterm and final exams. Okay, so back to where we were before the break. Share the screen. Away from the stuff that I was doing in break, we were over here. We just ran that installer. So it should be finished. Yeah. Okay. So when we install that software, we get this little thing. What do we want to make? Nope, this is not the one I used over the summer. I thought it was, but we'll just make an MSI installer. So we'll make a new installer application. You can see there's a few different options on what we're going to make with them. Oh, Tomcat web application. I was going to look at that. Tomcat automatically comes with that. I guess they just included it in the package here. We'll create a new project. I thought this was the one I looked at over the summer, but this is not the one I looked at over the summer. So it also started with an A. That's why I thought advanced installer might be the one, might be it. But they're all very, very similar. We do basically the same thing. We have this form to fill out and things should be labeled in order. Should go in a similar order. So what's our application? Called it identity theft. Version 1.0.1. You might want to put what it like the unique identifier you use for your major projects there for the publisher, something identified, or I guess in the long run you'll probably have a company, something like that. A link to where the support, where's the help menu at? Where does it automatically check for updates? Telephone numbers, you have to fill out the form. There's a lot of optional things. And remember, this is not for your software. This is for the installer for your software. I thought I was getting one that did exe files where we have the wizard. So that I could point that out. Remember, anything you set up in the GUI, is you look at different ones and try that if you're making the installer. The ones that would have the wizard that you step through, any options you pick refer to the wizard, not your software. Your software needs to be ready to go because This is just copying and pasting your software onto that end user's computer. How to remove programs. So, what control panel icon, disable modifier, repair. Licenses, you probably want to put something in license, some sort of license. Usually for those, I copy them from GitHub because GitHub has a whole long selection. So I have been known to create a repository, just use that, just to grab one of those licenses that they have the templates for in GitHub, choose the one I want, and then delete the repository afterwards. Copy that in there or something, but some sort of license agreement, a README, just fill out a form. It looks like almost all of this is optional. But that's the details that would kind of show up there on the first page of the installer, like when you're getting ready to install. If you're gonna do major upgrades, well, you can read the message there. Need a code to keep track of what it is and all that. I guess I'll skip that one and just kind of go down the templates over here. So next up is resources. And this is what are we putting on their computer? So files and folders. So on the target computer, rename this one. Application folder. I assume that that thing says application folder is going to be named automatically. Program files are the ones that we do not have write access to. So usually your software goes in program files. But obviously, if you need write access, you want to put it somewhere else. Are you going to create new folders to work in? Like when we installed NetBeans, that folder showed up in the documents or NetBeans projects. You would set all those up here. And it looks like this is on the target computer. So we need to add a folder and we'll search for, yeah, okay. They're very, very similar. I haven't used this one before. I thought it was the one I used over the summer, but on any of them, we'll add a folder and this is where we add the folder we want to copy. So we want this folder and everything in it. So all of this stuff is going to be copied over to this folder. I'm not sure how to change the name of it on this one. Oh, that's nice. Looks like this one has videos to walk through, but y'all might also remember this one only had a 30-day free trial. And whatever the cost was, remember that that is a business expense. That's a tax write-off when you're making 150 grand a year and the IRS wants 45 of that. It's nice to have a bunch of tax write-offs. So we're going to copy all of this over to the user's computer. That looks like most of the buttons here, but yeah, it's generally like that. They're very, very similar. It'll be something where you set up all your information. Something where you set up the files you're copying and where you're going to copy them to. That's really what the installer is. We probably want some shortcuts. Here you can define internal, external shortcuts. So let's try the wizard. New shortcut wizard, that'll work. So choose the shortcut will be a file installed. So we're going to want to start that batch file. Right? That's the one we want. That's what launches our program. Create shortcut in applications, programs. I'm unclick that. Desktop and start menu, the two standards. Check which ones you want. Most users are used to that. And Meeting user expectation goes a long way. If people just open up your software and feel like they know what to do with it, you buy yourself a little bit more time. You all have done this before too, right? We try new software, we start downloading things, try them. If we can't figure it out in 30 seconds, we uninstall it and go to the next one list. So that's pretty much, think about how much time you give a new piece of software when you're trying, when you have a list of options to try. It's not very long. That's how much time you have to convince users to use your software. Or that's how much time you have to convince users to look longer. Right? Sometimes that might be just 5 or 10 seconds. So meeting user expectation goes a long way. File the shortcut. Point two. Okay, this wizard's nice, but I didn't look at the price. This one might have been really, really expensive. It actually probably was if it has a built-in wizard, if it has a wizard built in. So we're gonna go get this folder and we want to start. This is the file we want to install. We made the shortcut, but what we're doing here is this is making the shortcuts on their computer. I probably should have deleted that. That shortcut is the one for my computer, so it's not going to work on somebody else's computer, right? Let me cancel this and go back to the files and features. Cancel this, go back to files and folders. I do not want this one. Leave that shortcut. Do not need to copy the shortcut over because that's not going to work on somebody else's computer. The batch file will, but that shortcut is specific for mine. Shortcuts, go back to the wizard. Next. Something we're going to install. That's a long-winded way to say it's putting a folder in the start menu. Everybody's seen that before, right? Sometimes when we put set new apps on there, we get an app directly in our start menu, and other times we get a folder. I could probably point at a couple really, really quick. So access, we have the file directly, or in this advanced installer one, it gave us a folder of the other things we could open. So in our case, we just need the file. So we don't need to put it in a folder. And I'll do the start menu and desktop. Next up, we want to start the batch file, and this is as far as we got. Enter the arguments. Those command line args, that public static void main string, and then a parameter called args. This is where we would put those so that it starts, so that they get passed in on. All installers will have those. Working directory after identity theft, that'll be fine. We're not writing any files, so if that's it, I'm pretty sure that's in program files x86 where we don't have write access. If you need to write files, obviously take that into consideration. File name for the shortcut, it's going to be identity theft. Descriptions like the hover text, I believe. This is the hover text. Don't see it, but we do have an icon. So grab our icon. Wait, was that the right one? No. So from the icon we want to use, starts our app. I'm going to type something in there. I think that's hover text. When we hover, the full name will expand if it's really long, and then the description sort of thing. Just checking what a description or a shortcut is in this application. Not sure what that is in the wizard, so I'm going to go check to see what it is. That should get us a shortcuts. There's that. If you need to change things in the registry, we don't need to change anything in the registry for our machine. Well, package definition. Where are we going? See those square brackets? It's different in different software, but it has things like program folder slash manufacturer. Those are variables. See how it's the final path? It's going to make those folders, and those names are variables from things we filled in elsewhere in the form. That's pretty standard on these sort of applications. Shortcut folders, all of that, edit it if you want to. Hard code something in instead of using the variables. Choose different ones. Hopefully a 32-bit package will be okay. I don't think they make 32-bit machines anymore. There's some that haven't phased out, but I'm pretty sure all new machines are 64 bits these days. Like Google said no more 32-bit programs in 2019. So pretty much everything's 64 bits, but I'll just leave it there. And if it doesn't work, we can try it because notice we do have a save button for all these options we're setting up. I should probably click that. Let's go ahead and save the point we're at. It's in the folder, identity theft. Create installer. That way I can keep this separate from the installer itself. And that way we don't have to start from scratch every time. Y'all know what saving files is for. I don't know why I paused to explain that. Installation per machine, per user, per machine, administrator privileges. How do we want to set that up? Y'all can flip through the form, see most of them there. A bunch of optional things. Fast installation, don't save restore points. Y'all can read that. It looks like most of them are fairly obvious. Oh, okay, this does build EXEs. So do we want an MSI installer, which is just click once and the whole thing goes, or an EXE installer that has a wizard? Or a web installer? I'm thinking in 2023, we probably want the web installer so people download it and then the wizard one from there. I'm going to go with the default for now. Obviously, like always, you're going to want to play around with this, look around. Lots and lots of options. Output. I'm not positive on this one, but generally things like output would be for the log. It's not for anything we do. So like the installation log that might show errors and stuff like that. If something goes wrong, y'all may have seen that before, where something goes wrong and we get a message that says, there's an error log in your documents folder that you need to email to Apache so they can fix it. Have y'all seen that installers? Have you ever had an installer crash? They do sometimes. I believe that's what the output's for. I'm not certain. Give it a try, especially long way. We learn by doing. Archive is probably referring to caches. Keeping track of the logs and the caches, things like that. Installer analytics. I think this sends it back to us automatically. We don't need that. I'm going to skip that one. That sounds like a fancy feature that's, yeah. The first month is free, so that one gets removed after the free, that one obviously gets removed after the free trial. Requirements, launch conditions, so we can set up things like we had in that batch file, right? Oh, I guess this would go ahead and write those conditions for us. Again, the paid for stuff is kind of nice. The ones that are less expensive than this, like I'm pretty sure this was several $100s. I didn't look at the price closely, but I did notice there was 3 digits there. So you get what you pay for, that old adage. Um, Run if the current user's an admin, run if Windows is yours, run if it's on ARM64, all those requirements, minimum version, what operating systems do we support? Do we really need to install? Do we really need to support Windows Vista? That was a long time ago, right? Some of y'all were probably like in kindergarten when Windows Vista was getting outdated. Windows Vista was around before Windows 7, if you don't remember that. It came out briefly in 2004, I want to say. Was it 7? Yeah, people didn't like it. So within less than a year, they changed the look on the interfaces. They went back a step on the GUIs and people liked it. It was the exact same thing. They just changed the GUIs and everybody swore it worked. Everybody swore Vista did not work and was full of bugs. They changed the GUIs and everybody said it worked great. Since y'all are heading into software development, that's definitely something you want to pay attention to. Just because the test group says your software doesn't work does not mean your software doesn't work. Remember Vista, the change from Vista to Windows 7, all they did was go back to the old GUIs. They didn't even make new GUIs. They just went back to the GUIs that permit Windows XP, loaded those in there, and then they slowly changed them over a couple years. And it went from everybody flooding forums talking about how many bugs were in the program to everybody praising how great it was. And the best version of Windows they'd ever released. So something to keep in mind if you're heading into software development. Merge modules. So this would be if we start is there multiple applications running at once? Microsoft Office used to do it. I guess LibreOffice. Anybody use the open source Office software? LibreOffice still has one launcher. And then we launch that, and then we open our document editor or a spreadsheet or a database all from there. So we merge lots of different software into the launcher. That's what that's for. Dialogues. This is for the wizard. I wonder if we are making that. And remember, any options down here that we check are for the wizard. So like if we click launch application at end, that does not launch the application at ends. That puts the checkbox on the wizard that says launch application. So keep that in mind when you get to screens like this. All of our installers things has them. I'm just going to go with the default one that's run finish actions. So any checkboxes refer to the wizard. Just keep that in mind. Change the pictures, all of that. Environment variables. Everybody knows what environment variables are, right? Or programming class, I hope you do. I did not know why that opened solitaire. We open that, go to search. System environment variables. So like here, path is all the programming languages our computer knows about. Or the things we want to treat like programming languages, I put text editors in path too. That way, every terminal that runs on my system, whether it's PowerShell or Bash or Zesh or Fish or Command Prompt, all of them know about my text editors. Although Path is supposed to be for programming languages. We can put other stuff on there. Does our software need any of that? Do we need to put our software on there? For example, VS Code. I think everybody has that on your machines, right? They put code directly into the environment variables so that all we have to do after we install that is type the word code. Any place that we can type the name of a piece of software and it'll automatically start VS Code. If you want to do those, then we get down to project summaries. I'm not really sure what's going on this one. Most of the free ones don't have a properties thing, so I'm not really sure what that one's for. You can try it. Run a couple try runs, see what it does or doesn't do. Import existing wizards if you already have one. That's for like packages like Office software. So if you already made the one for your document editor, you probably want to use the same one for your slide deck editor, and that one for consistency. All of that stuff. Finally, we can come up to files, save all that stuff, so we don't have to start from scratch. And then this button right here is probably the one we want to build. Running VM would be like a sandbox. Let's test the installer first. I'm just going to go ahead and click build. And this should build our installer. So I counted about 1.5 seconds, maybe 2 seconds. You all know how quickly computers write text files, right? My computer's not doing anything else. It took 2 seconds to write a text file. That's a pretty big text file, right? If it took the computer 2 seconds to write it, it would take us a very, very, very long time. But if you're getting paid by the hour, you might want to just go ahead and type the text file. Because software developers getting paid by the hour is a lot per hour. So where did that open? Open output folder. Try that. Okay, so it looked like in the identity theft, it created this identity theft installer. So, any questions? That make sense to everybody? I'll give it a second and then like desktop icon, so I'll take that off the desktop. Okay, so at this point we should have an installer to give our software a try. I'll go ahead and click that. Okay, this did make the wizard. Wizards are supposed to be on the EXEs, so there might be a label wrong there. The way Microsoft set it up, wizards go on the EXE, and then the one click, the whole thing goes on an MSI. It said we were making an MSI installer, but it clearly opened a wizard. Next, here's where we're going to install that. Yeah, in program files x86, so there's no permission to write files there. But the user still has the ability to change that if they want to. Next, I guess that is an MSI because all we did was decide where we wanted to install it. It's asking for permission. The box, y'all have seen that before, right? Do you want to allow this app from an unknown publisher to make changes to your device? All the descriptions about it. Unknown publisher. You just buy those other keys. Oh, we can see the desktop there icon on mine. I did not click the checkbox that says launch when finished, so we can see clicking that checkbox over in this software would put that checkbox here. It doesn't automatically run our software. It gives the user the option to run our software. That's probably the most confusing part about it. But now that should work from our desktop icon, right? Because it all worked. All we did was copy and paste it. Looks like it works. Still works just like it did. And we get, oh yes, yeah, so it's the hover text. I forgot I put a test case in there. You'll want to do that. You'll want to make a few installers, and if you aren't sure about something, put a big long sentence in there like what I did there, and just check to make sure that that's what it is. Also put a start menu, didn't we? So we go to all apps. Should be under eyes. Oh, there it is. So we got it on our start menu, which all you have to do to put something in the start menu is just copy and paste it into a particular folder. But that folder is buried really deep. It takes a minute to find that folder. It's buried really deep in the Windows folder on your C drive. Oops. I double clicked when I should have single clicked. And the software works the same from there as well. Hopefully we have an uninstaller as well. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So there's that installer we created, which is in the same, it's just in a folder next to all of this. So then this is what we would put on the repository, right? Put all that stuff on GitHub. Yeah, over here. So we saw CI/CD pipelines go out on package, so we could put it on a package. I usually put those under releases. I guess we could go ahead and do that. A new repository on here. There we go. New Scratch installer. Class example. Sure, add a readme to that. Create that repository. And then we can upload all those files. Only I'm gonna grab this and just put it here, just to make it easier. So there's the actual installer we created. That's what we want to get to the user. Grab everything, bring them over here. And I've just, obviously we would probably keep that organized in folders, but for our quick class example, I'm just going to drag them all over to the top level. And then we come over here, we saw packages for CI/CD pipelines. And under releases, we can create a new release. Version 1. Version 1 of a trivial example to show how to make or show what to do when the application is finished and make installers. I think that's correct sentence. I'm not gonna set that again. Add binaries by dropping them here, selecting them, and we want people to be able to download that installer.msi file. That's our release. There's the release information about it. So if we go ahead and publish that. Oh, we have to make a tag. I forgot that is required. New release. Search engines need tags to find that. But make sure you have a valid tag, okay? Right, without the space in it. Okay, that way we're. So now when somebody comes to our package, notice we have version 1 ready to go. So they can come over here. You may have seen that on other people's software before, right? Come over to our repository, say, oh, version 1's there, which I guess should probably be version 1.0.1. They come over here. There's the tar file. It's GitHub. So it automatically gives the Linux users source code. So there's the source code, and then there's the installer, and you would probably want to make at least one Windows installer, one Mac OS installer, and I always like to make at least one Linux installer just to let Linux users know it was tested on Linux. Linux users would never use the installer. They want the source code. They know if they're using Linux, they know what to do with the source code. But it makes a nice little flag to indicate that the software was tested on Linux too. If you test it on Linux, obviously don't do that if you didn't do any test on a Linux machine. But then we can just download that, and that's the process we're used to with installers, right? We're like, oh, here's the installer. We download that. That's over in our downloads folder. So we just run this installer, and then that puts the application out there. That's what we do when software is finished. Hopefully there's an uninstaller here, because installing is just copy and pasting. Uninstalling is deleting all that stuff we copied and pasted and those configure and undoing all those configuration changes we made, which can be a bit tricky. Then it's like we're using a Mac. Has anybody ever used Mac and had to uninstall something on a Mac? Can't really uninstall it. That's why I do factory resets on my Mac once a month or so. That's a good way to erase it. That's a good way to uninstall software. Most people don't reset their computers like I do. But also, most people don't break their computers on purpose in front of a classroom to show people how to fix them too. So most people don't. I call it washing the computer. It's like a bath for the computer to clean it up. They always run much better after a factory reset. But that's basically what we have to do on a Mac. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, make sure everything's done here. Close the logo. I want to do something in NetBeans before we wrap up for tonight. Let's see if there's uninstall settings. So we go uninstall. I was expecting to go right to the settings page. Under apps, under installed apps. Oh, there it is. So we do have the regular uninstall here and check control panel. Some people do it that way. If we go check our old style uninstaller, looks like we have an uninstaller here too. So we can uninstall it and get rid of all that stuff on there. Again, the message, do you want to change it? Yes, I do. So I click the button and we can see the desktop icon went away. So that one's kind of nice, but that one I believe was kind of expensive. A 30-day free trial, it looked very clearly labeled, might be a good starting point. It has some features that the free ones definitely don't, so you might want to look into maybe add the word free onto the search. Look for something that's actually open source or something like that. Or pay for it, because it's a business expense. You will use it as a software developer, so it comes straight off of your taxes. Yeah, so it's not on, shouldn't be on here anymore either. GH, yeah. So the uninstaller got everything off of there. All of those things, because otherwise uninstalling,'s like a Mac. All the files are there, but we don't have, the only way we can get them off there once we put them on is to go through and delete every single one. And a lot of them end up in hidden folders that humans don't actually have access to. Or humans don't easily have access to. I guess we have access to, but you have to go into the terminal and fancy things like that. Does anybody have any questions about that? I would like for you all to get some practice on that. So on one of the remaining assignments, if you make an installer for it and put that on the repository when you submit the assignment, I'll put extra credit, 5% extra credit. So Because the assignments that remain or might be past due or with different amounts, so 5% extra credit sound good for that? 5% extra credit for an installer. So if I can grade your homework by actually installing it on the computer, it'd be worth 105% instead of 100%. And excuse me. And please do that like we just did through GitHub. That way I can still read the source code. I use the installer. One other thing I wanted to show. The question came up before class about where to put things. I'm making a new project here. So where do all the things go? We've been using Ant. Whenever we do a web application, we just use Ant. Maven would work the same. Oh wait, it didn't build, did it? That's why we're seeing that error message. That's on my computer. I'm quite positive that's on my computer. Yours should build fine if you hit that error. It should just be a change in the POM file or the Maven repository. I'm going to go back to Ant because I know that one will build on here. Because with Ant, I don't tell it what version of Java to use. Maven's very explicit and it says use, well, apparently my computer tells it to use version 7, but we are definitely on Java 8 or here. So for some reason that wouldn't build on mine. I'm going to go to web application and just a slight change on the jar files. So if you want to build an Ant project as well, that would work. So if you've been, the question showed up before class. So if you've been using a main method, just a basic project and testing all your classes, objects and methods and interfaces and enums and all of the stuff for your project, if you've been testing that in a main method and then need to get the web pages going, you can use either one. The people that made Ant, that was their first time that the same people came back and made Maven a couple years later. So there was lessons learned in there and stuff. And then a different group made Gradle, but they based it off Maven as that's the wrong way to say it. Well, yes, they wanted the exact opposite of Maven. Maven's centralized, which is great for spinning disk, but they wanted something distributed, which would be great for SSDs. Because centralized everything in one file is really, really bad for an SSD because then we have to have a massive flash that pulls from only one spot. With SSD drives, it's a lot easier to pull from lots of different spots. Quick summary I like to give of it is the Maven build instructions would be one file with 1,000 lines, and the Gradle build instructions for the same project would be 1,000 files with one line each. The SSD drive can grab all 1,000 files almost instantly, but it would hang up on one file. But on a spinning disk, which servers still use the spinning disk because they last longer than SSDs. But on a spinning disk, one file is better because then we only have to move the read head once and we read the whole file. In a Gradle project on an actual physical spinning disk drive, traditional hard drive, I guess I'll say it that way, the read head would have to move all over the place and everything. So they're opposites of each other. So I guess Gradle was kind of based on Maven that way. But they were explicitly looking for the opposite of Maven. So you can set up the Tomcat engine and all that stuff we saw like for testing it. I'm still gonna skip that part. But we get in here and when we expand it, should see, oh, not that one, this one. You should see a folder called web pages and a folder called source packages. Obviously your Java code needs to go in source packages and your web pages go in, your JSP pages go in the web pages folder. Once you create the project, it's obvious. If you didn't know that first step, then you wouldn't see it wouldn't seem so obvious. But once you create the web application, whether it's Maven or Ant or Gradle, however you want to create your building instructions, you should have a web pages folder and a source packages folder. I'm gonna get rid of this index and make a new index, so we do some Java code. And web page is the same place that one was, so new JSP. I'll call it index. And over in source packages, I guess I'll just put it right here. I'll make a new Java class here. New Java class. I'm just gonna make a hello world. So Greek.java with, I don't know if it says hello world. Public string, say hi, join. I'm like, just quick hello world, because we just need to see the, for us, we just need to see how the files relate to themselves, right? Your Java classes and source packages, probably not in the default package, a useful name there. And your JSP over here, because we do have to import it, which I need to go see what this is called. Documents, NetBeans project. Oh, I apparently called it web application 1. Source. See if I can just see if this will work. So we create this tag on the JSP that has add page, and then we say import equals the name of it. I think I can just do it this way. Okay, it does need the package names. It's application 1, which is not a package name. Nope. I'm gonna go put that in a package. That's been generated for us all semester, right? So package has to be the first line in there. So package stuff. And now move class to correct folder. There we go. So now I can import stuff.greet. Okay. Sorry about the back and forth there. I probably should have put it in the package to begin with. Putting things in the default package is a problem because then we can't. It's hard to find it in the default package. But over in source packages, we have our Java code, and we have the index JSP page, and then we just set up our code here. That tag for doing stuff in Java, which we need some greet sorted data. I'll just call it greet as a new greet. Since we didn't put a constructor, we do have the default constructor. And then once we have that, we can come down here and put a paragraph. Just wanted to say, and then a Java tag with equals, so that we can apply the things directly to the element we're in. We can do greet dot say hi. Here today. Wait for the compiler to catch up. Everybody okay with that? Makes sense. Hopefully you've seen that before, because your project where you have to do that is coming up due in a couple days. you'll probably put a form and put a form and some inputs so that we can access your software and do stuff. Remember, we're just making this a GUI. I just needed a quick example here. So source your Java code over in source packages and your JSP pages in index.jsp. Or I was reading off the screen. I apologize. Your JSP pages in web pages folder. Now we can run this and give it a test. Something was read. Log on there, and we can see that the results of that method got thrown in the middle of the paragraph. No surprises there. But when we build it, it's going to be a little bit different. That's the thing I actually wanted to show here. Stop that run. Yeah, so that's all done. We're ready to deploy this. So to deploy it, we would do a clean and build, just like we did on our other project, right? When we got the jar file, uh-oh. Exclude class be not allowed. Well, it should have built that. This and options. Oh, maybe I have to go actually find that. Where's countries under build? So it should be building this. Cannot exclude class files. That sounds right. Unless it actually built it. No, no distribution. Well, that's annoying. I was wanting to build this and I don't know why it's not letting me. I guess I could have checked before. Oh, that's compiler. We'll do this in just a second. Let's see if I can download it from here. There it is. I'm gonna see if there's a workaround since NetBeans built something that obviously loaded on there. Should be in here, but it's not. I thought maybe I could get to it. like download it, but not gonna like save it. Running. Clean it, then try to build it. Sorry, I don't know why my NetBeans isn't letting me build that. Basically, what I was trying to do here is instead of a jar file, we get a war file as a W out front. In order to run JSP pages, we have to have a war file. Seems as issue comes with this. Nope, I'm not rolling back to an earlier version of Java. In my compiler, I don't think I can do this. Oh, there's where they're saying to paste that. Well, I wanted to create that to show you how to deploy something on there. I wonder if I have any sort of war file I could build. There's the sources. I guess I could try this. Okay, I didn't want to do that. Let me show you all what I did in case you hit that message. Go to properties, under sources, up at the very top. Right here, down at the bottom, source binary format, this is where we choose which version of Java it is. Java is backward compatible, so we were trying to build it on 20. I don't know when that was removed. I'm pretty sure 17 would work. If I go to 17, clean and build. Nope, doesn't work on 17 either. Go to properties, under sources. 8 will definitely work. 8's from like the early 20 teens, a long time ago. But now if we clean and build it, no error messages, and when we come over here, documents, this one, in the distribution folder, you'll see there's a .war file, which is essentially the same as the .jar file. And that is what Tomcat wants to run. So I'm going to close this and come over here to Jamp real quick. So to manually deploy it, we open our control panel and start Tomcat. Or if you're doing it all from the console, you'd run the startup script. That's the name of it. So, In the Tomcat folder, there's several scripts, a batch file, a shell script, and a couple others called startup. You would just run the appropriate one of those. If you use YAMP, you can just hit the start button. And then once that's running, if we go to localhost port 8080, here's the Tomcat homepage, and right over here is manager app. This is where we manage everything. And it's asking for a password. And the passwords, if you need to enter one on your C drive, where Tomcat's installed, or wherever Tomcat's installed, if you actually installed it directly on your machine instead of using YAMP, you go to those files. But if we go to Tomcat's installed under config, or conf, the abbreviation for config. If we go in here, you'll see this XML file called Tomcat-users. We set everything up. Let me just open this up with my text editor. You scroll down. Initially, these two are commented out like that. So by default, it's going to look like that. And this one right here says, actually the password says must set password. That's what it looks like when it generates this file. So obviously all you need to do is uncomment these two things. So notice we have a user with a username, a password, and then the roles that they have. You can see there's lots of different roles. The error message has instructions. So if you don't know that, then you would just set a password here. I had it set to admin, but I'm going to close without saving. So just uncomment those lines and put a password for your admin. Don't save that. It's in the Tomcat/config folder, the obvious abbreviation for configuration, Tomcat users, and then you can use that password to log in. You can't use the password you created for NetBeans. That one is restricted to only NetBeans, and your computer will know that you are not an IDE, so it won't let you log in with one of the IDE passwords. And then this is where I just was. I was trying to see if I could download that file. So I couldn't download it because it wasn't fully deployed. But if we scroll down just a little bit, notice deploy. A few options with configurations and stuff, or just a single WAR file to deploy. So after you build your web app, this is what you would do on like an AWS server. You spin up a server, load Tomcat on it, just set it to run 24 hours a day or something, go into the manager app and then click deploy and just upload. Click choose file. Hopefully that makes sense. The obvious mistake there. Choose the file, then go to that WAR file that you built. And then when you hit deploy, localhost port 8080 goes right to that index page. So we need the name of it. Anybody remember the name of it? Oh, web application 1, which this is a link here. So web application 1, and there that WAR file is as a deployment. That's the other type of deployment. Sorry about that build. It should be easier than that. I think I need to run updates on, I might need to run some updates on NetBeans, is why mine was doing that. But you all know how to search error messages, right? What I did there hopefully did not come to anybody as a surprise by your, at the very minimum, 3rd programming class. You know how to copy and paste an error message right in Google, and you'll get all kinds of results. Or ask ChatGPT, it probably knows it, or some of the replacements are out. GPT-4, if you pay for it, that one, GPT-4 does have some advantages for programmers, but it's not free. So we build the WAR file, and then once we have that, then you go to the manager app, and just upload that war file. And you do have to, so I think you're in Jamf, you can just hit config. Oh yeah, if you just hit the config button, you can automatically open that user's XML. That's probably a quicker way to do it. I should have shown it that way. And yeah, just deploy it and then deploy it out to the server that way as a single file. Instead of all those different files, you just build them into that single war file and then build that war file on Tomcat, which is what NetBeans is doing in the background. Or on our other ones, like we saw earlier, build the jar file and then all that stuff we saw earlier. So I always would like to take a night to cover this. Does anybody have any questions about that stuff we looked at this evening? It's quite a bit, right?
We could also use the method that was in your project, right, for the Spring Boot.
Oh, yes. Yes. Spring Boot, if you use Spring Boot embeds Tomcat server in your work. There's a slight change. I have it on a video. That announcement I sent out about the REST API where I said, watch the first video. I made those videos and then decided not to use them, but it is in those videos. What you have to do on a Spring Boot file, start.spring.io, something in Maven, that'll work. Yeah, all of that's fine. 17, generate. Awesome. That's not gonna work. Let me delete that. Delete that one. And add a web dependency. There we go. And now generate. And then when you load that into NetBeans, file, import project from the zip folder, downloads is this one, import. Notice that I built a jar file. Your IDE needs it to be a jar file in order to test it. But it needs to be a war file in order to run the applications. So, did that bring in? Yeah. So here, under really what you do is come down to the pom.xml. These are our build instructions. And somewhere in this section, so probably right after the version number, right, we have version number, add a tag for packaging, and say war. And watch what happens when I save this. Notice the icon is the coffee cup. So when I save that, notice the icon is now the web icon. So that one line is in your POM file is the difference between a jar and a war file. Your IDE has to have it as a jar file in order to run it that way. But here, if I hit // to comment that out, save it, we can see the icon is back to the jar file. So just put that line in there. You can watch those videos. If you go back to that announcement, I had a playlist. I can pull it up on YouTube. That went to this playlist, which I decided not to use, but videos 2 through 5 are exactly that place. It puts your JSP page in there. I built it. Yeah, these videos were put together at the same time I was writing the project instructions. But I decided not to use them. But you can see it's a bunch of 20-minute videos. It continues on and eventually launches it in the Electron framework as a desktop app too. There's a couple other things you might want to do. They're not required. Like that will give you something you can download and then upload like we just saw. But you can also come over here to dependencies, add a dependency, and Tomcat, embedded. Let's search for it this way. They got Jasper. Uh, this isn't a very good search feature. I might need to go. There's one we want to add. Oh, there it is. Tomcat embedded Jasper. I remembered what 3 words were in it, just not the order they went in. If we do this, include this one. Add that. What that did is that just added this, that added this tag right here. So you could also just type that tag right there. You do not need the version number. If you take the version number out, it will just use the latest version. But this will put Tomcat inside of your application. So then you can just run the WAR file directly, just Java. It is still -jar and then the WAR file instead of the jar file, because it's a special type of WAR file. But if you do, that's in those videos. So my suggestion, if you're, the expectation on the final project is all in that one set of videos. I made those, I wrote the instructions for your final project, I'm grading the final project, so that might be a good first place to look. Right, it was made with the project in mind, but the plan changed from what those were originally made for. But we can add other stuff in there. The one thing you want to make sure of is in this section where you have group ID, artifact ID, version, name, all of that, add in a packaging tag for WAR. And then as you comment and uncomment that, it automatically, it puts together your, that switches between a web app and a jar app. If there's JSP pages there, it does have to be a WAR file. JSP pages will not run from a jar file, but your IDE does that automatically whenever it launches stuff. So make sure that's commented out when testing. All that's spelled out in the video. In general, the same process though. This is just a bunch of starter files for a Maven project. So are the ones in NetBeans. Different starter files. Those are newer starter files. Then installers, the stuff we do when the software is done. And again, one of any of the assignments remaining, there'll be a 5% extra credit for an installer on there. Is practice with that. Does anybody have any questions about those things from this evening? Okay, I assume 5 seconds of silence means there's not any questions. If you have any, let me know. Otherwise, on Thursday, we'll hit our last couple objectives, which is multi-processing and parallel thread, multi-threading and parallel processing. Do multiple things at the same time. Is multi-threading. Use multiple cores on our CPU because they don't even make single core CPUs anymore. So we have that to our advantage. That's really quick. It'll take about 20 minutes, and we'll have some odds and ends to go over and answer questions on homework. Otherwise, that's it for today. If you have any questions, let me know. As always, I'm always happy to help. From now to 9:50, I'm just going to be sitting around waiting for questions to come my way if you have any. Otherwise, I'll see y'all on Thursday, and we'll wrap up the semester then. Your final exam's out. Make sure you get that in on time. It's just a debugging one. And please make sure everything is submitted by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. I never would accept any late submissions after the final deadline for the board, because that's the date set years ago. Otherwise, y'all have a good one. I'll see you Thursday.